Hi, I'm Scott Mills with About Saving Heat. We're a building optimization and retrofit company. Over the last 40 years, we've done over 30,000 retrofits. I've done about 2,000 most recently, 400 units for the city of Aspen employee housing. My background, I've been trained in Passive House, and I'm also a BPI building analyst for Core and Energy Smart. My first introduction to high-performance buildings was back in 1954 when my father built our home. And this is in the day of no air conditioning, 2x4 walls. And he decided that he was going to stuff our walls with 8 inches of fiberglass bats. He put 12 inches in our ceiling. And what we ended up with was the coolest house, literally, on the block. While everybody else was sitting in 85+ degree temperatures in their homes, waiting for the sun to go down, we were in a very comfortable 75-degree home of our own. Over the years, I decided when I built my own home, we installed R50 walls, R60 ceiling, and we resulted in a 70% reduction in the energy bills for our home compared to my neighbors. So this got me involved with all the different high-performance building techniques out there, and I came to the conclusion that the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Home program is the best long-term solution for builders. As I said, my father was a builder, my brother was a developer. I've built my own homes, and so I'm really looking for a simple way for builders to be able to go beyond net zero right into positive energy homes, which is a home that is built so efficiently that it can both pay for the upgrade, solar, battery chargers, and an EV unit for electric vehicles, all bundled into a 30-year mortgage that is actually less expensive than building to code. So what we're going to talk about today is what the Zero Energy Ready program is, why we need to get involved with that, and how we're going to do it. One thing to understand is that this program isn't something new that's cutting edge its way out there. Actually, California, Oregon, and Washington are using it as their building code. The reason that they're doing it is it's really not that far beyond the 2015 IECC, which you can see on the second bar from the end that has a star on it, and then the next red bar down is the Zero Energy Ready program. So it begs the question, why would we want to spend the extra time and money of moving into a certification program rather than just sticking with what we have, tried and true, with the building codes that we understand today? One reason is that we know that home buyers are paying a 10% premium for a home with certification. And so we want to be able to understand that there's a lot of support out there for us in doing these homes. Core has grants up to $38,000 to support the extra cost of getting a HERS rating and upgrading components and things like that. The thing that you find mostly from the Zero Energy Ready program compared to the LEED and Passive House is they really have a lot of marketing support. They have downloads so you can build signage so that when real estate agents or potential home buyers are driving through the neighborhood, when they see a sign that says Zero Energy Home, they're going to be really interested. And when they can see things on it like solar included, they're going to want to stop in and take a peek. So when they're walking up to the house, they're going to see the badging that you've done. And this is all going to support your sales. When they walk in the door, they're going to have a brochure that explains this program and how people are going to have a better home that works better and it's going to last longer. You'll see the 3 bars there. The green bar is for the Zero Energy Ready, the blue bar is your Energy Star, and the gray one is our average home that's out there today. And so what the people will be able to see right off the bat is how much better the home that they're getting from you would be. And you'll actually be able to show them in dollars and cents the savings that they're going to make. It gives you really simplified checklists so that you can go over your systems as you're developing and building your home. So you can really find this stuff quite easily without having to dig through a lot of paperwork. And so what it's going to do is make you one of the top 1% of quality builders, and you'll be able to have the information, marketing, and support to be able to do that. What we have today is a lot of one-offs. So if a potential home buyer goes to an architect or the builder, and maybe they pulled this off the internet, or they've worked with an engineer and they come up with some kind of crazy plan and say, I want you to do this for me. And it's just so many opportunities for failure. What I do in a lot of the building reports, and I'm going through houses, I find out so often these systems have failures linked to them. So the whole system's down and it may just be a pump that's broken, but nobody does anything with it. And so all this expense that's put in is lost. So when you see this stuff, you just have the tendency to want to walk away. But with the Zero Energy Ready program, you have answers to all your questions. Through their Solution Center, you can go through the carousel here, and everything you're looking for, you can punch on that and it's going to bring you up information. It may be CAD galleries, it may be YouTube videos, but it's going to give you information that not only that you can learn from, but you can actually download into your tablet or on your phone, take it to your architect, or you can take it to your subcontractors and show them exactly what you're looking for and what you want done. So let's look at building codes. You built your code home. Congratulations, you've earned a D. You didn't fail, you passed, but building codes are the minimum standards for building so that people don't die if they live there. And the thing that you need to understand is that codes change every 3 years now. In the next 11 years, we're going to be at zero energy anyways. And so the problem that we run into is that even though the whole valley is at 2015 codes, because of home rule, every municipality has its own take on it. So what happens is you can go to Aspen, they don't need a blower door. But you go to Snowmass Village and you find that you need to do a HERS rating. You go into Carbondale, they want you to do a encapsulated crawl space. So if you're doing buildings throughout the valley, you're running in to all these little problems where each municipality has its own little changes. But when you jump ahead to the zero energy levels, what you find out is it really isn't that difficult. It'll give you a program that will carry you through basically most of your career, at least till 2030. And let's just go over the components that you're going to have to put together. So you see the Zero Energy Ready line there. And so starting from the top, you need to be solar ready. Well, that's as simple as a PVC pipe coming from your attic down into your mechanical room. Then we have efficient components, which are Energy Star appliances and heating systems. EPA indoor air package is as simple as having higher quality filters on your furnaces. Ducts in a conditioned space. Most of us are doing that already. HVA quality with whole house ventilation. It's just a matter of bringing fresh air into the house, and we'll see how simple that can be done. Water management, low flow toilets and shower heads and faucets. So one of the other ones is independent verification. If you do LEED or Passive House or any of these things, you have consultants that are standing behind you, letting you know what needs to be done. Same thing, you can work with a HERS rater, and they are going to support you and be able to come out and do inspections to make sure your subs are doing the right thing. Finally, we look at the enclosure, and it's only somewhere between 2012 and the 2015. So it's nothing new with what we're doing today, and so you're not really forced into this big reach as you would be with Passive House and LEED certification. So the HERS rating, so if you have a zero energy house, it's a HERS rating of 0. They're only asking for 48 to 55. For our climate zone in the valley, it's about a HERS rating of 50. So it's really not difficult to get there. And they're going to give you all the steps in the program, checklist, and help you do everything at the proper time, with plenty of details that you can look at. As I said, that you'll be able to show your subs and be able to just be aware of how to do this. So why do we even want to do this? It's change. Change comes quickly. Even 100 years ago, it only took less than 15 years to go from horse and buggies to all automobiles. And it's faster and faster as we go along. What used to be generational to decades for change to come now comes in days to weeks as we download new software into our cell phones. And then the home buyers are news. Now, millennials and Gen X people are now 60% of the new home buying market. And the difference between them and the boomers is the boomer generation is now retiring and downsizing, and the millennials would like to choose an energy efficient home over a code built home. In the same way as they don't carry a desktop around, they have all the apps and things they need in their phone. They want things simple and compact, and they want it done during their mortgage. They don't want to have to buy a house and then come back and spend $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 to add solar and batteries and other things to upgrade their house. They want it all built right into their mortgage today. As a retrofitter, the number one reason we're brought in to work with people is due to comfort issues. The upstairs is too hot, the basement's too cold. And the second reason is utility bills. We have people in Snowman's Village, they're spending $3,000 a month to heat a home that they're not even living in for more than a few weeks a year. And it doesn't have anything to do with the builders. It has to do with the building codes. And so using the Zero Energy Ready program, you're working to a higher level, but once you learn these simple techniques to do it, you can build a better home quite easily. We need to slash our global emissions. Our municipalities, local and state governments are really pushing for us to reduce our energy usage. And the thing that we need to understand that only 15% of the energy in the ground today is being used for any kind of comfort or any kind of work to help heat our water in our homes or to cool them. And so from extraction and the production, transmission, actually burning it to make electricity, and then sending it over the wires to get to our homes, and then running into our inefficient homes, 85% of that energy is wasted. So if we continue on with business as usual, we're going to burn up the earth. And as we see today, we've gone from climate change to climate chaos. Every day I see on the news and see the problems we have from flooding and wildfires and things like that. And it's something that we have to look into. Even the biggest fossil fuel producers and users of the fossil fuels for electricity have said at a big meeting that they understand that we're going all electric, and then it's going to end up coming from the sun by the use of solar, just because the prices are so much lower than the problems we have with coal and gas. Our children understand what we're doing, and we got to think beyond our first costs today. We've got to really look into what are we doing for our children, their children, in the future. Even ExxonMobil, they understand that it's cheaper to use solar than it is to use their own infrastructure, and they just put in a 500 megawatt solar farm in Texas to run their fracking operations. We need to understand also our life expectancy is going down because of particulate pollution, which comes from coal and gas, our cars, and also a lot of it's coming up now as we're seeing wildfires in the West burning out of control for months and months at a time during the summer. You look at investment. Over 85% of the investments is now going into zero carbon. Nobody is investing in fossil fuel technologies. And they're divesting. Big banks, pension funds, sovereign funds are now taking their money out of fossil fuels and putting them into renewables and efficiency. We have over 2.25 million people working in energy efficiency and renewable jobs. That's 2 times more than the total of the fossil fuel industry, which works with coal, gas, and oil. As you can see here, we're transitioning away from coal. And over the last 10 years, the blue bars are renewable, the light brown is natural gas, and the dark is coal. So just in the last 15 years, 10 years, excuse me, we've pretty much moved away from any coal generation, and we're moving into renewables in natural gas. And natural gas is actually transitional because most natural gas wells only last a couple of years. We always think of when you're drilling for things like oil or water, you're dipping into a giant pool, and that all you have to do is put your straw in and suck it out. But with fracking and with natural gas, what happens is you break the soil and the rock. And it's very similar. If you take a piece of glass and drop it on the ground, it doesn't break up in one nice clean piece. It's shattered, and we're shattering the rock. And much of the gas that we're trying to pull out is lost. And so that's when we run into problems like we have down in Rifle, when people are actually lighting flames off of the water coming out of their faucet. And even though we're the largest producers of oil in the world today, as you can see, the blue bars are showing you our resources, which are going down. The red line just shows your newly discovered. So basically, even though we're pulling out more than anyone else, we're actually getting right down to the bottom of the barrel. And we're learning that we do know we need to change. So most of us believe that all the new electrical generation is being done through natural gas. But the gray bar, you'll see that in 2002 was the peak for new gas generating plants. And that as you move along, the blue is renewables. So since 2012, renewables have really been taking the space over. And so in 2016, renewables, new electric generation was 3 times higher with renewables than with gas, and coal has been zeroed out. This year, hooray, hooray, renewables surpass coal in electric generation. So now our renewables now produce more electricity than the coal plants throughout the country. And solar is even growing faster than wind. Most of us think that wind energy is where everybody's going with renewables. But there's a problem with wind. It's mechanical. Now we have a 350-foot tower that we have to send a guy up a ladder to make sure that the gears are greased and everything's working okay. They only have about a 20-year life cycle. And so again, you can see in 2012, wind peaked out. And then since then, solar has been taking over because it's usually ground mounted. It's pretty easy to get to. And it's basically a window facing the sun where wind turbine blades wear out after 20 years, and it's really expensive to maintain. So here's just to show you the resiliency of a solar panel. There is a reporter that wanted to find out what was the oldest solar panel in the state. And he was searching and searching, and finally his boss comes up to him and says, "Oh, well, I have this old shack that my wife and I many, many years ago moved into when we first got married. And we had this solar panel that we threw up on the roof to run our tape deck." So he said, "Go on out there and check it out." So the reporter goes out, and he finds this shack, and he goes in, and as you can see, it's not orientated. It's sitting in the shade under a tree, and it's not clean, and it's really about as shabby as you can get. He walks inside, flips a switch, no maintenance, no shine up, nothing, and it's still 40% or 60% efficient. And so it just shows you that solar panels really are going to be the future. But are we going to just basically pave paradise and fill it up with solar panels to run our country? I don't think so, because really, as we learned from the Lake Christine fire, any type of transmission that has to come from any distance is really a problem, because we were told that if the power poles had burnt down, it could have been weeks to months before they reestablished power back into the upper valley. So we're trying to get away from having to be big utility scale solar and move into a more sustainable choice. We've seen with farmland that they've added wind generation turbines, and they've been working really well. And now they've done taken the same idea with solar panels, and now they're showing that by combining solar panels with farmland, they can actually increase the profits for the rancher or the farmer by 60%. And this is how it's going to look. The animals can still wander around underneath. You can even have your large combines moving underneath, so you could be doing wheat farming, you can do cattle production, and this is going to keep our small farms and ranches open. So this is a direction that we need to look into. Because by providing all our energy, by building it into our homes, is really the direction we want to go. There's new software out there where we can turn these subdivisions into their own micro grids. Also, batteries. So what do we do when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine? Well, batteries, just the price of batteries over the last 6 years have dropped by 80%. There's a lot of money and research going into upgrading our batteries, and it's only going to get better over time. We're used to using batteries for our toys and flashlights, and now we're using them on our vehicles and home storage, and it's even gone to grid scale and industrial scale battery storage. Tesla made a deal with a utility in Australia. They were running out of their gas turbines, and they were going to have to add more turbines to their system, but they were having a problem. It was very expensive, it was time consuming, it was going to take them several years to be able to get it up and running, and they were basically up against the wall with their energy. And the energy they needed is what they call frequency control to keep the lines running at 60 hertz. And then it was also peak demand, that demand that everybody makes between 3 and 7 o'clock at night, and between 6 and 9 in the morning, where everybody turns on all their machines and the water's going and all these things are happening. So Tesla told them, they said, if we can't do it in less than 100 days, we'll give it to you for free. And they built this large battery storage system in 90 days. It saved the utility $400,000 every day, paid for itself in 3 years, and it took care of a big problem for the utilities in a very simplified way. When you compare just the maintenance between an electric vehicle and a fossil fuel vehicle, it comes out to almost even more than 30% savings to maintain your car. This is a tough slide to read, but what it shows is that when there is a comparison between a Tesla Model 3 and a Toyota Camry, then over 5 years the cost, and that includes gas, oil, maintenance, and everything all included, it was $12,000 less, which would pay for about a third of the vehicle. And that brings us to how this is all coming together. All this that I'm talking about is off the shelf, ready to go. It just hasn't been put in place yet, but it's available, and it's going to be becoming more and more mainstream as we go along. But vehicle grid integration. Basically, instead of having to buy a big battery, what we're able to do is connect to our vehicle to our home. So now what we have is what's called time of use billing. If you're to be charged for the time you use it, you may be paying 35 cents a kilowatt hour between 3 in the afternoon and 7, but only a nickel a kilowatt hour if you're using it at 11 o'clock. So if you were to use your vehicle to take you off the grid and then recharge it later in the evening, you could make substantial savings. I just bought my own electric vehicle. It's a Nissan Leaf. I ran the numbers. What I found out is between the tax savings, all the rebates, and then the actual savings in dollars and cents, I'm actually getting this car for free. It really sounds amazing. Please contact me. I'll give you all the details. But what happens is you get 30% off just in rebates and tax savings. And then gas for your car, you're paying about $3 a gallon. I'm paying the equivalent of 75 cents a gallon. So as all these savings add up, you find that you can put it back into the cost of your car. Additionally, I was talking with Holy Cross Electric, and they had decided, or they're working on a program, and they asked me if I would work with them on it, and they said they want to be able to control the time of usage for my charging of my vehicle, and they'd give me $150 a month. So all these things that we're talking about, electrification, moving towards solar, high performance building practices, all of these things are bringing money back into the pocket of the homeowner, which is going to make them look towards you to buy these homes when you're building them the way they're interested in having them done. And there's even help for the utilities. There's big companies out there that are going to really support everything that I'm talking about, so it isn't waiting for the utility to figure it out. There are actually going to be a lot of plug-and-play systems out there going forward. Colorado Realtors have just added home energy scores. There's a box now on the MLS so that we can put that in. And so now you'll be able to actually show your energy savings compared to other houses. So if a person is down to the last 2 or 3 houses, goes, which one do I want? And then he says that all things being equal, one of them costs $10 a month to heat and run, and the other one costs $200 a month. It makes a pretty powerful suggestion to that person to pick your home. Builders, now we have about over 20% of builders are now certifying green. Over 450,000 homes are built with HERS ratings. So you're not jumping into anything new. What you're jumping into is a proven commodity. Because in a survey of 5 million homes, home buyers are willing to pay a 10% premium. We have the opportunity as builders in small commercial, residential, and if we combine that with how we can deal with transportation, of impacting 70% of the fuel and greenhouse gases that we produce with just the work that we're doing. We can become a big part of what we need to do. So energy efficiency, building a good envelope is the best start. Less cost, less needs for heating and cooling is always going to make it cheaper when you're buying solar. On the left is energy efficiency. On the right, on the far right, is solar photovoltaics. So what we want to do is make the most efficient houses we can, which is the cheapest way to do it, so that we don't need to spend so much money on our solar to heat our water or home or use our air conditioning. So as you see there, it's 0 to about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. How do they get to 0? That's what we're going to talk about today in our simplified building techniques. But basically it comes down to your orientation. So efficiency is the largest contributor to the reduction in our fuel usage, double what we get from renewables or anything else that we have going on that page. And the investments are going up by 100%, where investors know they can get their money back at a profit if they invest in efficiency, even more so than any other renewables. So let's take a look at how this is all working out. We have 2 homes. One was built to 206 IECC standards, costs about $3,000 a year to heat and cool. They did $20,000 worth of upgrades. Cost about $100 a month to pay for it on their mortgage. But the home, the efficient home, proved to have double the savings of the cost. So it was over $2,000 in yearly savings. The final number is that a little more than $1,000 was a profit after they paid the mortgage on the upgrades. Now, most accountants are going to look at that and say you save $1,000 a year on a $20,000 investment. That's a 20-year payback. That's not a very good investment. But by reinvesting in solar, batteries, and charging, what we find is that $1,000 savings pays a substantial amount on upgrading into solar, batteries, and a charger. And then when you combine that with the cost of fueling an electric vehicle, you see that if you're driving 5,000 miles a year, which is the average in the United States, you'll be saving over $1,300 a year. Again, when you speak with millennials and the majority of new home buyers, they're very interested in having a choice. And the choice is, do you want to buy a lot of oil on an inefficient home, or do you want to invest into solar panels and efficiency and drive your vehicle on that? And it's clearly moving towards solar is the way to go. So who's going to say no to a $50,000 upgrade that turns a profit every year? You're going to get a 97% return on your investment plus a 10% resale premium and $1,200 a year of positive cash flow. It's a pretty simple thing for a buyer, if you present that to them, to make a decision. A lot more return than anything like a marble countertop or an upgraded kitchen or bathroom. So how are we going to get there? Well, it's just 4 basic principles that you need to understand. So orientation is just how do you face it to the sun? Air sealing, let's just seal it right. And then exterior insulation, already on the 2015 code. And indoor air quality, making sure that it isn't a sick house, that we get fresh air into the house. So here we are, out in the middle of nowhere. It's very cold outside. But how is it that we have such a comfortable world that we live in? And it's these 4 basic principles. And we've known about it for millennia. If you want to be cooler during the summer, stand in the shade. If you want to be warmer, stand in the sun. Cavemen weren't so dumb. Chinese knew 6,000 years ago, before you could build a house, you'd have to take a stick and stick it in the ground and show the building inspector exactly how the sun was going to shine on your home during the summer and during the winter. And then their building department put out designs and said whether it's a small house or a big house or their palaces, everything had to be built in the same way. Rectilinear, facing the sun, and nobody could shade their neighbors. And they even laid out their town plats and their subdivisions. You can see here, nobody is blocking their neighbors, and even the houses within the lots are not blocking each other. Everybody's getting maximum solar. The Greeks did much the same thing 3,000 years ago, and here's a 3,000-year-old Greek building that looks like a modern passive house apartment. And they did something a little different. What they did is they oriented to the southeast. And the reason they did that, as you can see, during the winter, when you're oriented to the southeast, you get full sun first thing in the morning. Those boxes represent hourly changes. The middle line is noon. The far left is 6 o'clock in the morning. So when you when you are oriented to the southeast, you can see we get full sun first thing in the morning. But when you're doing south, which most of us look at as the way to do it, what you find is you don't get full sun till 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I had a home, I was over here at the Columbines, and it's a cross-shaped. Each unit is L-shaped. So I was facing on the southeast, and I had two neighbors facing the south and one facing the northwest. And so what I found was that my heating bills were half of my neighbors. Because when they got up in the morning, they had to turn on the heat and bring the house up to temperature. When I got up in the morning, my house was warmed when I got up. And the same thing when you're oriented to the southeast, you also get a gain on the southwest. And it'll look something like this. Here's a home that the corner of the building was oriented to the south. So you see that they have full sun in the morning, full sun in the afternoon, and that's a giant 2-story open space cathedral room that they could keep warm at very low cost. But the first thing all my friends, when I show them this, say is, yeah, but it overheats because of all that glazing. Well, most of that can be taken care of with a simply choosing spectrally selective coatings that can reduce the amount of heat that goes into the house. So the big takeaway is with a well-sealed house and good orientation, you can reduce the heating load by 90%. Free heat equals free fuel, big savings. But what do we do? How do we build and lay out our homes? Do we lay it out so that everybody gets a lot of sun and that we can use our orientation properly? Not really. The only heat that we get in most of our subdivisions is on the roof in the middle of summer. And as you can see, everybody's got a tree in the front yard. They're laid out the opposite, so very little solar goes into the house and very little the only heat gain they get is during the summer. So 50 years ago, half a century ago, when the oil crisis hit, we had to do something, and everybody jumped on it. And so we had a lot of work done on how are we going to build the home of the future. And we did a lot of crazy things trying to figure out how to build an energy efficient home, until we finally came back to the basic tenets of thermodynamics and the principles of heat transfer. And what we came up with is this. This is a zero energy ready home built in Durango. It was about, I think it was about 4,000 or 3,800 square feet. And they're only paying $420 a year to heat the house, wash the dishes, and clean their clothes. They had a HERS rating of 21 because of the solar panels on the roof. And so he was running his envelope was at about our HERS rating of 50. So again, this is not difficult to do. He was building at about 250 a square foot. And this builder has a 2-year waiting list, and he's getting a 20% premium at sale for these homes. Even building to passive house levels have been brought down to negligible rates. And we see even on small subdivisions, you can get this down to $100 a square foot. No, not in the Roaring Fork Valley, but you can go out to Grand Junction, Gibson. There's a lot of places that where our labor's lower, that hitting these numbers is not impossible. Second step is air sealing. We lose 40% of our heat just through air leaks. So we want to make sure that we seal it up tight. I work with bringing reports on the efficiency of homes to a lot of homeowners. And this is not unusual for me to go into their home. They're all bundled up because they can't put their house or their heating thermostat more than 64 degrees because it costs too much. And what you see when you go outside are things like this: massive ice dams and destruction to their home. Again, we need to seal it up tight. You'll have all the details you need to make sure you do it. It's always really tough the first couple of times you do it, but as you work with code and code changes, after you've done it a couple of times, it becomes very matter of fact. So here's a big takeaway on air sealing. You don't need to do a blower door test until you are getting your certificate of occupancy. Big problem. If you fail, how are you going to seal it up? You may have to start caulking baseboards with carpets. You may have to go into your attic space that already has insulation that you've got to seal up your top plate. You may have to go in the crawl space and start sealing things up, trying to hit those numbers. But when you want to do it is the rough in. Your walls are open, your windows and doors are on, no insulation. You do a blower door test, costs a couple $100. They come in with their thermal camera and they find all the leaks. You can use a little paint can, spray around wherever you need to see these leaks. They're all pretty obvious. And you can get down to passive house levels, really, really low levels, quite easily by doing it then, not waiting and going back when you're trying to get your CO. So here's my buddy Floyd. He's got his double wall house. He really thinks he's going to do this great thing. And then I set him down and say, okay, now we've got to air seal this thing up. And he starts looking around and saying, so every single wire has to be, every single crack has to be sealed up? And the more he looked and the more we talked about it, he just fell apart. But in the same way we have roofers and electricians, we have subcontractors that can go out and do this. Our company, that we're an air sealing and insulation company, we can go out and do a whole house, depending on square footage, in a day for a couple of $1,000s and not really get in the way of any of the other trades. It's a pretty simple, straightforward thing that we do. But you just got to remember there's just so many leaks in a house, and you really do need to bring in some experienced professionals to get this work done. Over a mile of cracks that we've got to take care of in every house. But if you don't have any insulation, it's pretty easy to get up there and take care of this stuff. We can do a whole attic space, 1,000 square foot attic space in about an hour or so with a crew. Also, we're now moving away from having to do sealed up our lights with these top hats before we blow an insulation, because now we have LED lights that don't generate any heat. So you can use the same can lights that you're used to using, or the fixtures, and put those in, and then all you've got to do is screw that into the light socket, plug it in, and this LED light has a gasket on it that reduces the heat loss by about 80–90%. And so this is where we're going. It's really quick, simple, and easy. So now we got to look at reducing overheating during the summer and ice dams in the winter. So what you want to do is make sure that through your soffit vents aren't closed up and there's no problems, and you can vent out. I like ridge vents or gable vents, turtle vents. There's a lot of different ways of getting the air out, but you got to make sure that we can get that heat displaced. This is what I run into a lot of times. We'll go up and the builder's put in his soffit vents, and those are his baffles that he's trying to get that air in. And I call those, egg crates, because they're just really super lightweight styrofoam. And when we're blowing insulation, a lot of times we'll blow those right off the roof deck there. And also you can see between the baffles, it's black. And what that is mold, because when this insulation was made, they blew in the cellulose over the soffit vents, and then the moisture came up and started mold. Mold is terribly expensive to mitigate. So really you need to think about how you're going to do it. What we do is we use a very simple, it's a heavy piece of cardboard. It's already cut and ready to go. It's got a built-in dam. It's really easy to install, so when you blow your insulation, it doesn't go into the eave, into the soffit vent. It actually allows all the air to come up through the rafters. And so you're going to get a whole lot of air. And this is really what we want to do, is get the moisture out, keep it from overheating, both summer and winter, reducing dams, ice dams. So once we get the building basically done, we got to look at our slabs and crawl spaces. A slab will lose about 60% of its energy right at the edge. So you got to be sure that you're going to insulate it. So here's a way you can pay for much of your home's upgrades through this one simple technique. It's called a frost-protected shallow foundation. We need to build a foundation that's between 3 and 4 feet deep. That's a lot of trenching, a lot of forms, a lot of expense and cement. Our choice is that we can go to an insulated slab, as you see on the right. And by so this is 2 feet down, and then you're bringing your insulation 2 feet out. And that just saves you 2 feet of digging in forms and cement. I did this on my own home. The cement contractor told me I saved $30,000 just on the cement. Didn't even include forms and digging. So you could really save a lot of money using this technique. And you can get all the basics that you need. You can make sure you have everything set up right, make sure your subs do everything right, and have these big savings. If not, you can simply just buy a lot of foam, and here's a simple way where it's a prefab, and then you can just lay that out really quickly and do a monolithic pour. But if you have a crawl space, you got to make sure that everything's sealed up. So here we have, we're using foam caulking around the subfloor in the rim bay, also against the mud sill, and then against the foundation and around the electrical penetration. So yes, it takes time. That's why you bring in a sub to do all this stuff. When we get done with that, we like to add an R19 bat. So now we've got basically an R19 wall against the exterior instead of a 1 or 2 inch rim. Also, you want to seal up all your floor penetrations, open crawl space floor, dry dirt floor. We'll still have 30% moisture in there, and all that moisture goes up into the walls, and even if it doesn't create mold, it will cool off the walls. And so all your interior walls are suddenly attached to your crawl space, and it's cooling, and then it goes up and leaves through your top plate into your attic. So basically you're spending a lot of money keeping your interior warm because of these penetrations. So what we look at is the best way to go is this. Here's the centerfold. So we've got our vapor barrier. We've now added an additional R19 bat. It's a 4-foot blanket around the edge with a radiant barrier. Now our rim joist has an R38 value, and the radiant barrier has a reflectivity of 97%. So 97% of the heat that is generated in that crawl space stays in that crawl space. Also, there's only 3% emissivity, meaning how much heat does it allow to go through that. And so only 3% of the cold radiating out from the foundation wall is able to get into the crawl space. I worked on a Victorian in Aspen. They had a crawl space that was running about 40 degrees during the winter. They couldn't get it to heat up. They were spending over $1,000 a month in their heating, and they were uncomfortable. We went in and did this to their crawl space. It brought the temperature up to 70 degrees. Actually, they had radiant in the floor, and the radiant didn't have any insulation over it. That's why all the heat was being lost. And so that reduced their heating bill by 50%. So this cost a couple $1,000 and it paid back within a year or two. If it's let go, this is a lot of times what I'll start going into a crawl space. This is not unusual to run into this type of stuff. Sometimes just from the storm water running off the roof or the drainage around the neighborhood, the water actually will get in under the footers, and it can be really destructive. But getting back to it. So now we've buttoned her up. Let's talk about some insulation. So here are all our choices. We can either have fiberglass bats, we have blown-in insulation, we have foam, and then over on the left, my preferred is a mineral wool or rock wool insulation. And we'll talk more about that a little later. Fiberglass bats are great if they're installed perfectly, but they can drop from an R19 down to an R3 or 4 just by sloppy installation. Cellulose is better because it's heavy, it lays down. If you go in there and mess around with it, have to do work up there, you can literally rake it back over, and it holds very well, and it actually does a little air sealing. Fiberglass, blown-in fiberglass in attics is not recommended because it's like down. It's very light and it lofts up, but if you go in there and walk around on it, it all gets crushed and you lose your R value, and there's no way to fluff it back up. So let's talk about foam. So you see the line right there. Per the EPA, potential for off-gassing of volatile chemicals from spray polyurethane foam is not fully understood and is an area where more research is needed. It's legal, it's code, you can do it, it's not a problem, but the problems are huge. The main problem that I see with it is that it's waterproof. You can see the guy on the right up there, he's spraying everything in his hazmat suit, and if that roof gets a leak, then they don't know where it is. It may run down that between the rafters, hit the wall. You may not find it until you see a puddle in the crawl space. Where's the leak? Nobody knows. Another big problem is in closets, wine cellars, basement media rooms, things like that. It actually, moisture comes in from within the room, hits the foam, and then stays behind the drywall, and you don't see it for years until it molds. I just worked on a home, and they had that problem in a closet. It was a 1 square foot mold problem. We had to pull about 30 feet of ceiling drywall to mitigate it. It cost about $10,000. So using foam, and they had foam in their ceilings, using foam has a lot of problems. And one of them is when you use it on the exterior, it heats up, it shrinks. So let's say you have a lot of boards in there and they're all butted up against each other, and then over time they shrink and you lose a 1/4 inch, which doesn't sound like much, but you may be running 200-300 yards of cracks, and so that really adds up to reducing the effectiveness of that insulation. The list is quite long. I don't want to get into everything. I could spend an hour going over all the problems with foam. Basically, you can Google foam fails, and there is a wealth of information and videos that talk about all the problems with foam. One of the biggest problems, there was I think it was a 20-story apartment building in England. They just redid the facade. It was all metal, and it was backed in foam. They had their rain screen behind it, so there was an air passage behind it, and then there was a small fire. The whole building went up in flames in about 20 minutes. They lost a couple dozen people. There are a lot of problems with foam. But back to the insulation, what we want to make sure of is that 2015, you do have to have exterior wall insulation. And that is the best thing that ever happened to developing high-performance buildings, because it eliminates thermal bridging. And by eliminating the bridging, it effectively doubles the value of the insulation. So what happens is, instead of the exterior walls sucking out heat, it stops that bridging from the inside out, and now all your drywall on the inside becomes mass. So once you warm that up, it holds the heat, and it saves you a lot of money. So don't be afraid of using exterior insulation and finding some quick and dirty way to get around it. Really think about what you're doing and get involved with that, because that's probably next orientation in air sealing. Then this is really the big change that's happening in buildings today. Most of the time when I talk about high performance walls, this is what people refer back to. Double stud wall. I mean, the problem with that is you're building 2 walls, so that is expensive, and we don't want to go there. You get into passive house. They use a lot of foam and a lot of layers, and every layer is an opportunity for failure. We just can't keep our eyes on our subcontractors, and our subcontractors can't keep their eyes on their new hires to do their work properly all the time. And this is where there's a lot of problems with these types of techniques. So what we want to do is look at what Joe Stiebrick of buildingscience.com came up with is the perfect wall. Now you've got basically a 4-layer wall, unless you count a open air drain cavity. But here we go. You've got your outside facade, the water, which is your water control level. Then you've got your exterior insulation. You run into the OSB or your panels, and you want to have your water, air, and vapor control layer, and then your insulated stud wall. Really only one step above our basic 2x6 wall. But the big takeaway on this that you have to understand is that it has to have continuous, uninterrupted control layers. So no matter how you lay out the house, you've got to figure out how to attach all these control layers together so you don't have any holes letting out heat or problems with moisture coming into the house. Again, we got to look at the connections between our garages, and it's pretty simple to close them up. Also looking at porches and other things. A lot of times, I've even done fireplaces where I've looked behind a fireplace in a corner. There's no insulation in the wall. And so there's a lot of these little techniques that just destroy the ability of a house to work properly by missing these little points. So we want to make sure that we can get everything done in one layer, quick and easy. And this system, the zip system, and there's other systems similar to this, pretty simple. It's just like putting up your OSB siding. It's really easy to seal up. It's just using tape. And when you compare it to house wrap, this is where the big problems are. For every 1/4 inch hole in your house wrap, you're going to potentially get a gallon of moisture through it into your building. So the problem I see with house wrap is that at the end of the day, they may not have finished. They may not have covered the house wrap, and it stays open to the environment for days at a time. Wind comes up, things get torn. The guys just come back with their staple gun, knock it back together. No real taping, no real quality control. And so now you have hundreds, if not thousands, of little holes into the wall, which is now open to your air and drain cavity. Okay, what's rock wool? So rock wool is an insulation that you use in the exact same way as any other insulation, except it has a lot more benefits to it. We first found out about rock wool, the Greeks, thousands of years ago. They'd pull this hairy stuff out from volcanoes and use it to insulate their homes. Hawaiians, they used it for decoration. They didn't really insulate their homes, but I had to throw in a pretty picture. But rock wool, so here's the big takeaway. It's pretty much fireproof. And it's hydrophobic, meaning it doesn't hold water, but it allows vapor to pass through it. They did a study, fire marshals did a study where they built 4 buildings. And they're all typical buildings, drywall inside out, exterior, everything's the same. And they did fiberglass bats, they did foam, then they did cellulose, dense packed cellulose walls, and rock wool. The fiberglass and the foam went up almost immediately. The problem they had with the foam, that there was so much thick black smoke that was so toxic, they had to actually put it out before it failed because the fire was so intense. So these only lasted a few minutes. The cellulose dense pack lasted about 20 minutes. And then the rock wool lasted 90 minutes, and they ended up turning off the fire because nothing was happening. But the fire marshal gave it a 90-minute rating. Also, if you have a leak that goes into your walls with fiberglass or cellulose, then you've got a problem where it kind of explodes. I had that problem in my own home. I had a leak in a toilet. It ran off into my garage, and I had about a 30 square foot piece of drywall crashed down on the top of my car, and it probably had, I don't know, 50 gallons of water in it. It was a total mess because the fiberglass bats just held the water until it failed. So rock wool really has great potential. The R value is right in between foam and fiberglass. The cost is right in between foam and fiberglass. The best rating on any insulation you can get is a 5.5. Rock wool has a 4.5. So for the financial savings and the easy use and the quality that you get, it's pretty much a no-brainer to look into a rock wool insulation. Here you can see how easy it is. It goes right up against the wall. You don't need to have a rain screen or an air space in between. You can bolt or screw it right into the wall. It's really easy to use, no hazmat suits. If you got to make cutouts for your plugs or your switch plates or to allow wiring to go through, plumbing, it's really easy to do. And as you can see, there's no stapling. It's stiff enough that it'll hold itself up until you put in the drywall. And with good air sealing, these are an excellent, excellent insulation. Best part about it, you only need one insulation for everything. We see foam board used on exterior, under foundations, flash and bat or spray foam in the walls, and then you'll be shooting cellulose or fiberglass into your attic spaces. This, you can use one product, get your subcontractors trained. It makes it really, really easy to work with, and you don't need to worry about the problems of spray foam, of whether the weather's good, what's the humidity, is the temperature in the tanks correct, is everything set up right. I have run into foam that was actually, it was a little crispy on the outside, and then you put your finger into it, and it's like cake icing. It's very soft. And it was just because the installer didn't have his formula right in how he did it. Our last piece of the puzzle, we want to make sure that we have good ventilation and fresh air. Now, it's pretty easily done today using heat or energy recovery ventilation systems so that you have fresh air flowing through your house throughout the day. A lot of people I see when you get into the bigger homes, this is your total high-end, top-of-the-line heat recovery ventilation system. But it doesn't hook up to the furnace. So you've got two home runs, one for fresh air, and then you've got to heat the building. So this is really, really expensive. If you're running with forced air, it's pretty simple. You can put this fresh air intake system in. This is used for decades in commercial buildings, and it's pretty tried and true and pretty simple to do. But really, are we going to stick with forced air heating? There's better ways, because we're just adding on to what we do when we can make a technological leap and get beyond this. And the biggest problem you got to work with, the same way with the blower door, if you have to do a duct blast and you fail, forget about it. It could be thousands of dollars and days to get this fixed. We do have systems that combine heating, cooling, humidity, and all our systems if you are totally enamored by using a ducted system. They look pretty good now, the way they set them up, so you can put them into homes without being too problematic. And when you start combining it with solar, with heat pumps, we now have a way to heat the house pretty simply and save a lot of money using renewables. But I found even a more cost-effective way. Now here's this is a Panasonic. It's a single unit. It's about 3 by 2 feet. It'll take care of about 1,200 square feet. It could be a small home or a floor in a house. or a wing of a house, but it goes directly to the outside. So you're only having a run that's only 10, 15 feet long going to the exterior rather than a home run taking everything back to a mechanical room. So if you have a big sprawling house, these become very effective. The other one is to look at radiant heat. So you can still use the same heat pumps as you would in a furnace, but now it's pretty simple. It gets in there. You don't have the problems of furnace ducts. Even if you have fresh air coming in, you're going to have problems with your furnace because it's always going to have the potential for dust, mites, mold, other things running through your system. So I always say if you can get away from moving air, it's always better. The radiant floors are an excellent way to go. But you got to do it right. I see this over and over again. Guys say, okay, I can do that. And they just do a quick nailer under a floor and walk away. They may throw a little bit of insulation in the bay, but that's about it. And what happens is you're still spending a lot of money trying to heat that space. The better way is, and this is a few dollars a square feet, and you can get a huge improvement over the previous slide. And what you're doing is putting the heat right up against the floor. So just remember that by moving into the Zero Energy Ready program, you're going to be able to get all the answers to all your questions. It's going to be giving you a system that you can use for the next decade. And you won't need to worry about which municipality you're going into, what are the specifics of each building code, because this is beyond the codes until 2030. You'll have all the information you need, plus marketing. Become one of the top 1% of quality home builders by using a simplified program. You know how much you need to do if you go to the sustainability codes that each municipality has. Zero Energy Ready is only about a 10-page checklist. And with the support of your HERS rater, it becomes a really quick and simple way to get to a higher level of performance. So thanks for taking the time. I'm always available. I do consulting work, and you can always give me a ring if you have a quick question. Please don't hesitate to contact me. And thank you again, and good luck on your next high-performance home.